All right, let me tell you a story. A story about a $300,000 Maybach, an HOA Karen, and a welder. My name is Mark, and this place right here, this grease-stained, spark-filled garage, is my sanctuary, my workshop. I've spent years pouring my sweat, skill, and soul into restoring classic cars. It's a world of roaring engines, burned knuckles, and honest craftsmanship. But like every paradise, mine had a snake in the grass. In my case, it was the HOA. And within that HOA lived Karen. She wasn't just another member with too much time on her hands. She was the HOA member, the self-appointed empress of regulations, the grand enforcer of imaginary standards, the high priestess of petty complaints. And lately, her obsession had become my workshop. Apparently, the industrial aesthetic didn't align with the peaceful suburban fantasy she imagined for the neighborhood. At first, I tried to ignore her. But ignoring Karen was like ignoring a mosquito buzzing in your ear at 2 a.m., persistent, irritating, impossible to forget. She left passive-aggressive notes taped to my door, filed complaints about noise disturbances, made snide comments about the smell of oil and metal. She turned my daily routine into a low-grade headache. Then one afternoon, as I was finishing up a stubborn exhaust manifold, hands covered in grime, I heard it, the unmistakable, silky purr of a high-end luxury engine. I wiped my hands and looked up. There it was, an obsidian black Mercedes-Benz Maybach S-Class, gleaming, polished, ridiculously out of place. And it wasn't just outside, it was inside my workshop, parked dead center in my workspace, blocking my lift, my tool chest, my entire operation. And sitting behind the wheel, wearing a smug, victorious smile, was Karen. Mark. She declared as if she owned the building, I need a safe place to store my car while my garage is being repainted. Your workshop will do just fine. Perfectly adequate, she said, as if this was some spare storage unit. This was my livelihood, my business, my space. I calmly explained that this was an active mechanical shop filled with welding equipment, heavy tools, and countless hazards. It was not a parking garage. She waved her hand dismissively. Oh, don't be dramatic. It's only for a few days. And don't worry, I'll make sure it doesn't get dirty. Dirty? My blood started to simmer. I told her to move it. Immediately, she laughed. Actually laughed. Then she tossed me her keys. Be a dear and park it properly, won't you? I'm late for Pilates. And with that, she sashayed out, leaving her $500,000 trophy right in the center of my shop like a monument to her entitlement. I stood there staring at the Maybach, then at my welding torch, then back at the Maybach. Slowly, a dangerous idea formed in my mind, a plan so outrageous, so flawlessly petty, that I couldn't help the grin spreading across my face. She wanted a safe place to store her car? Oh, I would make sure it was safe. Extremely safe. The next few hours became a blur of deliberate, methodical precision. I rolled the Maybach into the exact center of the workshop. I didn't grab a sledgehammer. I didn't reach for a crowbar. That would have been sloppy, obvious. Instead, I picked up my welder. Carefully, meticulously, I began sealing the doors shut. Not just the handles, the entire seams. Front doors, rear doors, trunk, hood. Each line of molten metal fused into place with surgical accuracy. Every spark that flew felt like a silent message. You chose the wrong mechanic to bully. The smell of burning paint and heated steel filled the air. Sharp, sweet, satisfying. I worked late into the night, making sure every possible entry point was sealed tight. By the time I finished, the Maybach, once a symbol of Karen's wealth and freedom, had become an immovable steel coffin of her own making. With the vehicle fully entombed, I packed a small duffel bag. My vacation, planned months in advance, suddenly felt perfectly timed. I left a simple note taped to the workshop door. Closed for 2 weeks. Enjoy your parking spot, Karen. Then I turned off my phone, climbed into my old pickup truck, and drove toward the sunrise feeling lighter than I had in years. For 2 glorious weeks, I disappeared into the wilderness, fishing by the river. No emails, no calls, no HOA complaints, just fresh air and silence. And occasionally, the deeply satisfying mental image of that welded-shut Maybach sitting exactly where she left it. When I finally returned 2 weeks later, the scene waiting for me was better than I'd imagined. Police cruisers lined the curb. A tow truck driver stood nearby looking utterly defeated. Neighbors gathered in clusters, whispering and staring. And at the center of it all was Karen, face red, hair disheveled, shouting at full volume. The Maybach was still there, exactly where I left it. The police looked confused. They couldn't open the doors. They couldn't tow it without destroying it. And Karen, between shrieks, couldn't provide a coherent explanation. I walked calmly through the crowd, unlocked my workshop, and surveyed the chaos. Karen spotted me instantly. You monster. Look what you've done, she screamed. I shrugged. You parked your vehicle in my private workshop. I simply ensured its security while I was away. It's extremely secure, wouldn't you agree? After hearing my side of the story, and noticing the very visible no parking signs Karen had ignored, the officers had little to work with. Eventually, Karen was forced to hire a specialized automotive recovery crew to cut her precious Maybach open. The repair costs were astronomical, and in a twist no one expected, even the HOA quietly sided with me. Karen never parked in my workshop again.